As we go into 2026 and perhaps have a case of the back to the office blues, there is some good news if you happen to be a gamer. Sony's PlayStation studios are certainly busy with their new releases, which means that there's a lot to look forward to over the course of a year that already has great titles like Crimson Desert and GTA 6 lined up to keep us all on our toes. But what are the best of Sony's best cooking up for its gaming powerhouse that continues to be a console that gives gamers experiences that stay with them long after they put down their controllers? Well, we'll dive right in and find out, and the results are looking very promising indeed. Well, if you're curious, that's great. Join us as we take a look at what PlayStation is bringing to your screens this year. Bend Studio. 2025 was a tricky year for the studio behind Days Gone, with Sony's ill-fated live service push placing the studio in an unfortunate position where it had to lay off a significant percentage of its workforce. However, it seems that Bend has taken things in stride and is reportedly working on a multiplayer title with live service elements if recent job postings are any indication. While that might not bode well for those of you hoping to see a sequel to Deacon St. John's Adventures, it could make sense to wait on an official announcement. With the studio looking for a new creative director to take ownership of the new project, it could very well be that it's set in the Days Gone universe of another Sony-owned IP. However, all of this must be taken with a pinch of salt at this point, but one can still hope, right? Bluepoint Games. We commented on how Sony did Bluepoint dirty with its cancellation of its live service project that took away 5 years of valuable effort, which could have been better spent on a new project. Well, nonetheless, it seems that Bluepoint is leaving the past where it belongs and is already looking forward to a new action-focused project, as per its recent job listings. Now, is that an indication that the long-awaited Bloodborne remake could be a release title for the PlayStation 6? We would like to think so, but again, we're just going to have to wait for an official announcement instead of getting our hopes up. There are a few other great titles that could also be its focus if it is indeed working on a remake, but a new IP from a studio that brings a lot of talent to the table is also going to be very welcome. However, it might be prudent to assume that 2026 is going to be a quiet one for Bluepoint. Here's to hoping that it's the calm before a storm. Dark Outlaw Games. Although Deviation Games had to close its doors in 2024, Dark Outlaw has risen from the ashes of that closure and is now confirmed to be in the early stages of bringing its team together for a new project. Dark Outlaw's debut could be a big one, but we wouldn't bet on the new IP making its way to our consoles this year. As for any news about it over the next 12 months, well, we're going to have to wait and see if there's going to be an update. Fire Sprite Studios. Once again, job listings in 2025 are the only source of information on what this Liverpool-based studio is up to, but things are definitely looking interesting. With a dark, character-focused, and action-driven IP in the works, this is a project to watch out for, with an update hopefully making itself known at some point. With its AAA ambitions already known, and an emphasis on next-gen graphics, this new title could be a horror game, but that's just speculation at this point. Either way, we're certainly curious to find out more, and you can be sure we're going to eagerly tell you about it as soon as we learn something useful. Guerrilla Games. If you were hoping to hear that Aloy's next adventure in the Horizon franchise is shaping up quite well, we've got some bittersweet news. Guerrilla's next project is indeed set in the same universe, but it's a multiplayer title that's looking like an interesting blend of Monster Hunter's chaos and Horizon's innovative designs. Not to be confused with Steel Frontiers, this new title might do a better job of capturing the soul of Guerrilla's visually stunning and immersive universe. It's looking like a game where you need to bring your friends along for a bit of mechanical monstrosity hunting that could very well translate, well, into hours of fun. But it also means that Aloy's eventual confrontation with Nemesis might be a PS6 title, or a cross-gen one at the very least. Haven Studios. Sony's live service ambitions are once again a point of contention, as Fair Games development has taken quite a blow with the departure of both the studio's founder, Jade Raymond, and creative director, Danielle Drapeau, in 2025. With the former's experience, with many stealth-focused titles being an undoubtedly crucial part of the heist-focused gameplay loop, it's going to be interesting to see if Fair Games manages to capture the attention of players in a genre where things could get quite hit or miss. However, we're going to stay optimistic about the game given its interesting premise and potentially impressive gameplay loop where you're going to have to keep your wits about you if you want to get ahead. A 2026 release isn't looking likely though. Housemarque. If all previous studios' relatively quiet schedules for the year have you worried that you might not be playing any great PS5 exclusives this year, well, this one's definitely going to cheer you up. Saros might have been delayed by a month, but that's not too bad considering how great the title is shaping up to be. Arjun Devraj's time-exploring Carcosa is something we've been eager to sink our teeth into ever since it was announced in February of 2025, and is sure to be a game that builds on Returnal's excellent mechanics while bringing a few interesting twists like the Soltari shield to the table. This is a big one for PlayStation and could very well be a great addition to this year's lineup of other great games. Insomniac Games. The studio behind Marvel's Spider-Man certainly gave us a few sleepless nights, pun intended, with its silence on Marvel's Wolverine being a major talking point for us last year. However, things turned around and Logan's latest adventure is seeming like it's going to have everything we were hoping to see. The trailer for Marvel's Wolverine has us quite optimistic that the studio has managed to capture the dark, gritty tone of the character's adventures, while his primal rage and brute strength are very much part of the gameplay loop that's on offer. With Mystique and Omega Red making an appearance, this one has us eagerly waiting for a release date announcement slated for 2026. Malaysia Studio. With only news of layoffs at this first-party support studio in 2025 available at the time of this writing, it's looking like quite a year for the Kuala Lumpur-based studio. The live service disaster rears its ugly head once again, and we're going to have to wait to see if the situation improves for PS Malaysia Studio. Media Molecule. Despite the exit of its co-founders, Media Molecule did have job listings that pointed to a potential 2026 release on the new IP that it confirmed back in 2023. Those listings were contracts that extend all the way to 2027, which is a sign of potentially good things to come, although we must admit that they don't confirm a release date for a project that the studio has since stated is not going to be as similar as Dreams. Nevertheless, it's good to know that Media Molecule is standing tall and is perhaps building something that brings us visual flair and compelling premises to the PlayStation. Naughty Dog. Intergalactic is a title we're sure you're as excited about as we are. Reports of mandatory overtime at Naughty Dog to get the game's production on track after a few missed deadlines were making the rounds over the holidays, with the studio stating that it would have a clear roadmap for the year. It would seem that the studio is looking at a mid-2027 release on its title, which might be disappointing if you were hoping to play it this year. However, that might be a clever move that allows it to let its developers cook and deliver an experience that fires on all cylinders without forcing its talent to burn themselves out. Naughty Dog looks like it's trying to strike a balance, and that is always welcome news. Nixxes Software. 2025 was quite a year for this first-party support studio on the PC front, as its focus on releasing PC versions of some excellent PS exclusives like The Last of Us Part 2 and Marvel's Spider-Man 2. The studio also worked on the Xbox Series X and S version of Helldivers 2 and a bit of post-release work for the PC version of that game. This year, it's backing up Housemarque with art and gameplay elements in the run-up to the Saros' April 2026 release. It'll be interesting to see what the studio takes on after that, but we expect it to keep up good work that it's been doing over the past few years with PC ports. Polyphony Digital. Gran Turismo 7 continues to be a gift that keeps on giving for this studio, with the series producer recently confirming that it's sustaining around 2 million active players, a number that's set to grow as it continues to add new cars and tracks with consistent quality. We're probably going to see more updates to the realistic racer that the studio is going to be very busy with over the course of this year. And while we might wish to hear more about future projects, we're tempering our enthusiasm with the hope that the studio continues to maintain the high standards it is currently set for itself with a franchise that has been quite the draw for the PlayStation. San Diego Studio. With a job listing for PC developers resurfacing from Sony San Diego in October 25, there is speculation that the studio could be looking at bringing MLB The Show to PC as part of Sony's revised approach to console exclusivity. That is a solid title that could bring a smile to PC players hoping to hop into that game. San Mateo Studio. There isn't much to look forward to from this one, but the studio continues to be a solid source of support for some of Sony's lineup of second-party developers. It's probably going to play its part in a few titles that are in development, but it's unlikely that we're going to see any of its work this year. Santa Monica Studio. With reports of the studio working on its next big thing surfacing in 2025, there is speculation about a potential prequel that visits Kratos' early days in ancient Greece, taking the franchise back to its roots. However, there is also speculation that it could be revisiting Connecticut, a game that put it on the map in the first place. That one was a surprisingly well-engineered racing title that made its characters become the very vehicles you race, with some impressively realistic physics making it a challenge to navigate its tracks. We're quite curious to see what's cooking behind the studio's closed doors, but we're gonna have to wait to find out if this year we get a new title from this powerhouse. PS5 greatest hits making their way over to PC. There could be new additions to Astrobot this year, and we're always hopeful about an announcement of its next project, but there's nothing on that front as of now. Team LFG. This newly formed studio is probably hard at work on its upcoming title that blends team-based action with fighting and MOBA elements that could be quite an addictive way to get your action fix when it eventually launches on the PlayStation. However, that could be a long way off since the studio was only founded last year, and the ambitious project is probably going to take a while to make. Valkyrie Entertainment. There isn't much to report about this support studio that helped with titles like Twisted Metal and Infamous, but there's always a chance that an announcement could be coming our way later in the year, so let's hope that the news is good. XDev. The studio's Liverpool division is helping out with Saros, and is probably going to be busy with that one until its April release. There are also rumors that a remake of MotorStorm might be on the cards, although we're a tad skeptical about them, despite our enthusiasm to dive back into that one. It was a lot of fun back in the day. There's also a sci-fi RPG that's supposedly in development, and that could be what its Tokyo branch is up to at the moment, while it supports updates and patches on titles like Death Stranding 2 on the beach. Alright, and that's a wrap on what all of Sony's PlayStation studios are up to this year. Here's hoping that we learn more as the year rolls by, but there's still plenty of reasons for PlayStation owners to smile, thanks to some great exclusives making their way to the current-gen powerhouse. And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.